like to welcome you all here. We're going to talk about networking etiquette, some things that you can do to improve networking, and just how it helps you connect with people. Excuse me. My name is Jarryd Huntley. I'm a game developer from Cleveland, Ohio. I own a small studio called Polytundra. We make mobile games and do console ports. Alrighty. Is it advancing? Let's do it like that. All right, who feels that networking, professional networking, is or will be a necessary part of their career? Yep, sounds about right. All right, who feels that they could improve their networking skills? You see this? This is my hand included. The thing about networking is it's always something that you can improve on. It's always something that you can learn something new, you can learn how to connect with people more, and these are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. All right, so what we'll be covering together is what is networking. We'll talk about what is the term and look at it a little bit closer and hopefully learn something about it. The different types of networking. There's different types of networking that are appropriate for different places, different times. And then finally, practical networking etiquette tips for the modern games industry professional. Cool. All right, so what is networking? So I like to look at the definitions and kind of break them down. So if we look at the definition, it is really small from over here and doesn't show up big on my screen. Okay, the exchange of information or services among individuals or institutions, specifically the cultivation of productive relationships, thank you, for employers or business. Sorry, I didn't realize it would show up over there, not over here. But the thing, and there's a computer networking. I hope nobody's a computer here, but we're not going to talk about that. So let's break this down. The exchange of information or services among individuals, groups, or institutions. The thing I want to point out here is networking is an exchange. It means it's a two-way transaction. When you're networking with people, you're giving something out and you're getting something back. You always want to make sure there's equivalent exchange. You always want to make sure that you're listening as much as you're talking, and that you have an equal relationship with whoever you're chatting with whoever you're sitting next to, things like that. Next, it's among individuals, groups, or institutions. The thing I want to highlight here is the individuals. Whenever you're networking, it doesn't matter, if you're trying to get a job, it doesn't matter if you're, trying to meet a specific employee for a organization, you're always meeting with a person. And this is pretty much the most important thing about networking, is to remember you're always networking with individuals. People have their own feelings, people have their own thoughts, and you want to make sure that you're being considerate and thinking about the person you're chatting with. It's not, a machine, it's not, a transaction, and it's not guaranteed. And so when you're thinking about the person, that can make you more empathetic and can really help you connect with people. All right, so some general talking tips that go along with those. Still, when you're talking with somebody, don't hog the conversation. Make sure that you're listening as much as you're talking. I like to try to listen more than I'm talking. I have something to learn from students up to veterans of the industry, and I think that when we're listening, it puts our minds and our hearts in the right area to connect with people. Also, remember the individuals. That's what we just spoke about. Listen, exchange information. So if somebody's giving you cool tips, you try to give some cool tips back. And that continues that conversation, and it becomes more of a back and forth rapport. The other thing is, don't assume anything. When you meet with somebody, don't assume, certain genders have certain roles, or certain people might be in certain, positions. You just want to have an open mind whenever you meet anybody. You always want to start from a blank slate and let them fill it in as you are talking with them. And then lastly, always be authentic. Sometimes we have this pressure, we're like, oh, I need to look so cool, or I need to make sure, I don't mess up. It's fine to be, worried and anxious, and I get that as well too. But the thing is, you want to be your true self. You don't want to, put on a face for this person and then turn around and, hang out with your buddies, and that person is like, is that the same person? You want to make sure that, you're being authentic, you're being true, and that you're connecting with people with who you are. All right, the different types of networking. So we're going to dive into a little bit of science and talk about something interesting. Let me look at this name. So there is a sociologist named Mark Granovetter, and he wrote an academic journal called The Strength of Weak Ties. And in this, he talks about strong ties versus weak ties. Can I take a sip of water? And so this is an example of strong ties versus weak ties. Strong ties are basically your core group, the people around you. So, your best friends, maybe the people in your cohort in school, maybe the people in your animation department. Those are the people that, you have a daily rapport with. Those are, your close core network. But weak ties in this paper, and then I'll kind of, readdress those terms, are the type of people, you chat with occasionally. Maybe they're your Twitter mutuals or friends on Facebook, somebody's business card, somebody that you've spoken with, but you don't necessarily have a close relationship with. The important thing to think about is it's not like strong ties are better than weak ties, because in his paper, he actually, and you can, this is freely available online, you can actually, but he makes the point that you're much more likely to get a job through random acquaintances than with your close friends. So both of these types of people are extremely useful in your life, in your career, and people moving back and forth through weak ties and strong ties. And I like to just think about it, your close friends, the people you chat with, regularly, and the people who you maybe chat with through online. And they're absolutely both valuable, and you want to make sure you're networking with both and kind of keep those equal. All right, enough science. So like I mentioned, you always want to keep the individuals in mind. So remembering the people. So also, you need to be really careful about subscribing to, adding value to people. Oh, this person is more valuable to talk with that person, or, I don't need to spend my time with that person. That's completely false. And also, like I said, that paper proves the opposite. The people who you don't know can actually connect you to those other strong networks, because everybody has those strong core networks. And having those, those different friends that you chat with occasionally can connect you to those strong networks. And what that does is that expands your network. So you want to make sure that you remember that there's value in each and every conversation. You can chat with somebody and it might lead to a conversation 2 years down the road, but if you just kind of brush them off and say, oh, well, they're not in, 3D modeling, or they're not in, advanced, graphics programming, which is what I want to get into. So, maybe I don't want to spend my time talking with them. That's not something you want to do. You want to chat with everybody and just keep, people in your network, keep up with them occasionally, and you never know where those connections might lead. All right, so when you're networking, one of the things that, with me surveying people and experiencing myself is feeling comfortable. Me, I'm an extrovert, and so I like talking with people. I like, being around with people, interacting with people. But a lot of my friends, actually, I think most of my friends in games identify as introverts. And so one thing you can do when you're going around networking is, if you have an extroverted friend, is go, with the buddy system. Ask your friend, hey, do you mind if I tag along? And, we go to this party, we go to this networking event. It can help both people. The, more extroverted person can do the introductions. The introverted person doesn't necessarily need to overextend themselves. And you can kind of tag team. Also, as you're both networking, you both have different core networks. And so with those, kind of with those powers combined, you're like a super networker, I guess. So, the buddy system works really well. When you're networking with people, you also want to try to avoid in-jokes, or inside jokes. Those are things that can kind of, squash the conversation. You and your friends start laughing, and everybody else is standing there like, what's going on? Am I supposed to laugh? I don't know anything about this. So you want to try to avoid in-jokes, make sure that you're being inclusive and that everybody feels accepted. So another really cool thing, and I had kind of realized this myself, and then in doing research I found a name for it, but there's something called the pac-man rule by Eric Holscher. And basically what the pac-man rule is, if you're networking with people, if you're chatting and you're standing in a circle, always leave one slice of that pizza pie or one slice of that pac-man open. And that does a couple of things. One, it lets people feel like they're able to walk up and join that circle. So it makes it inclusive. It makes it not like somebody has to break the barrier to try to just, make eye-to-eye contact and chat with somebody. Oops. So when you have, the pac-man rule, it allows, somebody to feel open to approach that conversation and allows you to talk with people who might not, have felt comfortable approaching that group before. Also, the other thing about the pac-man rule is it allows somebody to quietly excuse themselves. I've had this as well. You're networking with people and you just feel like, that anxiety building up. You're like, I need to steal away for a minute. Or, you have a phone call and you don't want to, interrupt a good conversation. If you have that slice always open and, you're opening it when, people are coming in and joining your circle, it allows somebody to just slip out easily, and it just lets everybody feel more comfortable. So as you're doing that, make sure, all you need to do is just take a small step to the right or left and leave a slice for a person to hop in. And then the last tip is make sure you take the time you need it. I especially felt this, like with my first GDC, I felt like I need to network. I need to meet all these people. And then at the end of the day, you're just like dead. It's okay to steal away for a minute. It's okay to take time to yourself. You don't need to, have permission, and you're not going to miss out on anything, because if you're overextending yourself, you're not going to be the best you. You might be a little bit grumpy. You might not, be able to answer questions as adequately. So you want to make sure that, when you need it, you're taking time away for yourself. And the other thing is, it's not a race or a marathon, it's your career. So this one networking event is a series of networking events that will happen throughout your career. So if you need to take half a day, for self-care to just, stay in your bunk and just, play Switch or something like that, absolutely do that. That will keep you refreshed for the next day and make you, and keep yourself, healthy ongoing. All right, starting or joining a conversation. So this is one that, I also spoke with a lot of people, and, a lot of people, have anxiety about or, feel uncomfortable. One of the easiest ways to just start a conversation is, just make eye contact and say hi. If somebody looks like they're open for conversation, if, somebody, is, off in a corner on their cell phone, you want to make sure you're respectful and you don't want to interrupt them, or you don't want to hover right next to them. But it's okay to just say hi to somebody and see what the response is. And the response usually is a really good gauge on how they're feeling and whether they're open for conversation. The other really important thing is, if the person doesn't seem receptive, it's nothing against you. It's really easy to feel like, oh, I should have been standing over here, or I should have, said it this way, I just kind of blew it. But you want to make sure that you're not reflecting back on yourself. Maybe the person was having a bad day, maybe, they had a whole host of things bothering them. You don't want to have that reflect on yourself and take that further. If you join a circle and you don't know where to start, ask a question. You can ask, say, what are you excited about, at this conference, or are there any talks you're looking forward to going to? And those are unconventional questions to start the conversation going. Then inevitably that will lead into questions about what the person is studying or what they practice in the workplace, and you can kind of continue the conversation from there. Another way to start or join a conversation is if there's some people talking, politely walking up and say, hey, do you mind if I join your conversation? That's probably one of the best ways to just join a conversation, whether it be with strangers or people you don't really know well. If they're having a specific conversation, they might say, oh, not right now, maybe come around in 5 minutes or something. Or the best result is, oh yeah, come, we're talking about X or Y. And just being polite and approaching people direct, I think is one of the best ways to join a conversation and to connect with different people. All right, so another one that kind of goes along with the things we were just talking about is making mistakes. We're all human. We all make mistakes. We all, accidentally say the wrong thing. It might come across the wrong way. We might say, something we're embarrassed about. But if you say something and you think somebody, might be offended, just apologize. Say, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for that to come out the wrong way. Or, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. And just leave it at that. Make sure when you're apologizing, you don't use the word if. That makes it conditional, which is not a real apology. So don't say, oh, I'm sorry if you were offended. I'm sorry you were offended. I'm sorry that I said that. Make sure you put yourself in the apology and let the other person know. So, whether it's, you say something rude, you misgender somebody, the next thing to do is just don't dwell on it. The last thing you do is, if everybody's a little bit embarrassed and whatnot, is to keep on apologizing. You don't want to keep on apologizing throughout the whole conversation. Just that one apology is absolutely fine. You can kind of move on and go from there. And, the person, if you give a heartfelt apology, they'll feel that and, continue on. And it's not like, you make one mistake and you're kicked out or anything like that. It's, we're all human, we make mistakes, and, that empathy, when you're really connecting with people, and like I said earlier, being, genuine, excuse me, will help those conversations and in those situations. All right, reaching out. So a lot of times when we're networking, we have we might have a specific goal or a specific intent that we're, looking forward to. If there's anybody, you are interested in talking with for advice, input, material review, whether a portfolio, your demo reel or something like that, the most important thing to do is just ask. A lot of times we're like, oh, it'd be so cool if I could talk with so-and-so about my portfolio or this or that. And if you just ask, a lot of times people are receptive to that. Excuse me. So you want to reach out through whatever channels you have available, to connect with this person. That might be emails, that might be a DM, or like we were talking about before, it might be that extended network. You have your core network here. Everybody else has their, core networks. And if you're interacting with people, you might say, hey, do you know how to get in contact with so-and-so? I was interested in talking with them about X or Y or something like that. And that kind of goes with the next thing. You want to be respectful of others' times. So, if there's a dev, that, is prolific and you're really looking forward to chatting with, you want to make sure that you keep it short. So, a perfect introduction is, like we said, walk up, say hi. Hey, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm so-and-so. I really enjoyed your game, X, and it influenced my design, and thank you so much for working on it, and, it was nice chatting with you. And that's a complete conversation in one. That's a really quick way to engage with people, and the nice thing about it is if that person's feeling receptive, they can continue that conversation. And if not, they'll say, hey, thanks so much for talking. And like I said earlier, it's not reflecting on yourself. They might have a business meeting they're going to or something like that. So that's always a really good way to connect with people. After you meet with people, you want to make sure you follow up. Email is probably the best because of the permanence of it. When you send an email, that sticks around forever. Slack, things get lost, Twitter DMs, things get lost, and email, people can refer back to, especially if they're busy. It's easier for them to go back and find it, so always prefer email. Also, whenever you're asking someone for advice on something, make sure you tell them what you're looking for advice for. So, hey, I'd like to talk to you about 3D modeling, and if you don't hear back, maybe reach out in a week or two and do one follow-up email. That's absolutely appropriate. But when you mention what you are looking for feedback for, that makes it easier for that person to plan and engage with. Maybe they have a roundtable or something like that. All right, so kind of wrapping things up, remember you're networking with people. Every single conversation you have, whether it be professional, whether it be a casual conversation, they're all people of different backgrounds, different ethnicities, different genders. You want to make sure that you're thinking about the people you're talking with and making sure that everybody's comfortable in those conversations. Meeting people from your extended network is the way to meet others. So as you're networking with people, you're growing that extended network. And if you have something you need and you're genuinely connecting with people, it's okay to reach out and ask and say, hey, I was looking to see if I could connect with somebody from X company, or I could connect with this developer to talk about this very specific design goal or something like that. And the people, the more people you meet, the stronger your network becomes. Like I said, this network is part of your career. And it's not something that you need to get all the networking in at this expo and you never have any networking time ever. It's you have this networking opportunity and that networking opportunity and the next networking opportunity, and each time your network grows and gets stronger. So remember, have fun, connect with people, and continue to network. All right, thank you.